So in the last video, what we did was creating an AWS Lambda function. So if I am going to be deploying this particular serverless right now, then there would be a hello function created. And for that function, the handler is going to be represented through this handler.js, and inside handler.js, there would be this hello function that would be taking care of the entire computation behind that Lambda function. But as we discussed that we are going to be needing one API gateway in order to interact with this function. So we are going to be placing the API gateway before the function. Now, firstly, we are going to be refactoring the serverless so that we can export the function definition to a different file. Now, let's do this. First of all, we are going to be creating a new directory inside backend called resources. Inside resources, I will be creating a new template which is called functions.yaml. Now, as you can already imagine that this entire functions declaration would be present inside my functions.yaml. Now, this is what I am going to be writing here. So hello function is now going to be called from functions.yaml, but it has to be declared so that it takes in from there. So what is the way? I can use a built-in serverless function which is called file. So I would write file, and then I'd have to define the path, resources, then functions.yaml. So in this step so far, what are we going to do is we are going to be referring our functions declaration from functions.yaml. But functions.yaml doesn't even yet refer to any event file. So we will do that next. All right. Now, in the next step, we're going to be fixing two errors that we created in the last step, which was that this file is a function, which is a built-in function inside serverless. So we would have to wrap that inside a curly brace. Now the declaration would look fine. Now, if I go inside functions, it needs to have an event file declaration. So if I write the event file here, it has to be something like this. But we can again export the event file to an external template just like we did for functions. For example, what we can write here is we can write another file which is again present in the same directory as in resources. So resources followed by events.yaml. You would notice that I am currently writing the events files declaration, or events file is getting called from the functions file, which is present in the resource directory itself. But why am I referring it with this parent directory of resources? I'll explain that next. Let's first create the events file, and the event file would look something like this. We're going to be making HTTP calls. So I will write HTTP here. And then inside HTTP, the method that we are going to be needing would be get. Okay. And we also need to have the name present here. It's called path. And the path is going to be, let's say it's going to be the root. So what I was explaining earlier, if we see closely that functions is referring to the events file from this file itself, and the file is present already inside resources directory, then why are we referring the events.yaml appending the root directory of resources? The reason is the function would be called from here. So the relative path for whatever we have written inside functions is also going to be taking the same relative path which is for serverless.yaml. For this directory where the serverless.yaml resides, the functions has to be referred via resources. Similarly, the events also needs to be referred from the resources directory. Let's modify the events file next. Now the question is, what is the purpose behind modifying the event further? As it happens that whenever the browser makes a call to our API gateway, it needs the options course to be present. And how do we enable that course via serverless is by saying course is true. Okay, we can also additionally go ahead and add authorizer if we are having an authorizer present before our API gateway, but that is something we can talk about later when we are going to be integrating the Cognito login part with our application. Now let's say how this resource or this API gateway should look like when we are making the call. It doesn't need to be always the root, because the root is basically for the whole function. Let's consider that we are going to be creating a note-taking app. Now for a note-taking app, the get function is basically going to be used when probably we are fetching all the nodes that are present. So in that case, our path might look something like this, which is /nodes. So the next thing that I'm going to be doing is deploying this serverless package, what I have written so far. The flow would be like this. The service backend, that means a cloud formation stack by the name of backend, needs to be created. And when that stack creates, the first thing that would be created is going to be a Lambda function by the name of hello. We can change this function to something different. For example, we can say list nodes, so that we have a function by the name of list nodes. And then the list nodes is going to be referring to this handler.js. Now we can definitely override handler.js to be something like list nodes.js, list nodes.js, and then we can also modify the hello function by saying get all nodes. Get all nodes. Let's go back to the functions.yaml file again. And then, so our list nodes Lambda function would be created, which would be referring to list nodes, and after that, get all nodes. Get all nodes. Let me just verify once again. List nodes is the JS function, and then get all nodes is my actual function that is present inside the list nodes.js file. So this is the Lambda function that would be created, and for this Lambda function there would be an API gateway that's going to be associated. The API gateway should look something like this. So there would be a new resource created for the API gateway for the method get, and because we have enabled course true, we should also see, apart from get of nodes, we should be also seeing that there is an options as well present for this particular API gateway resource. Let me verify my path where I am. I am already present inside backend. So what I can do is I can use the shorthand for serverless, which is SLS, and I can say deploy. But if I just go ahead and deploy this serverless package right now, what will happen is that it will be deploying my functions and API gateway, the entire stack that would be deployed inside the default region of AWS. But I don't want to do that. I can actually override. So for overriding, what I need to do is inside provider, I need to pass in the region where I want to target my resources to be deployed. For example, because I'm recording this video from India, I can say it's AP South 1, which is the Mumbai region, And also, because serverless might use, it needs to have a stage present, like we can segregate our deployment based on the dev stage or the production stage. So for that matter, we need to add something like stage as part of the provider as well. And right now it is dev for me. So I have added dev. So let's see if I am going to be deploying my stack, how the stack creation looks like. It's going to be analyzing my entire serverless first, and now as you can see that it has created a .serverless directory here. If I go inside it, I can see the template JSON files. For example, the whole thing is created in all these template files. Okay. Whenever you are doing it for yourself, you can go ahead and take a look at this in a much more detail. So as you can see, the stack creation is still in progress, and it has created my stack. It has created my functions, which is backend, my service name, hyphen my stage name, hyphen my function name. But strangely, I don't see the event, that is the API gateway, being created. We will look into that issue, why the API gateway was not created. But first of all, what I'm going to do is I will log in inside my AWS console, and I will just verify if my stack was properly created or not. For this purpose, I need to go to CloudFormation. If I navigate to CloudFormation, I should be seeing a stack created by the name of backend dev. Okay, and the first thing that we can see here is the resources which were created as part of this. So for our Lambda function, the list node Lambda function was created. Then it also created the log group in order for our function to log any console into the CloudWatch. It also created a role for it. So as you can see here, the role was created. It created an independent bucket for deploying the whole stack. And if you go inside the events, you can actually look and see what were the events that were triggered for this whole CloudFormation stack. And surprisingly, I do not see something present for API Gateway, which means that there was a problem in our serverless declaration, and that is why my API Gateway did not get created. I'll quickly take a look in the Lambda function that was generated here, and I will just verify that the Lambda function was actually created with the same definition that we wanted to give it. So as you can see here, this is the same definition that we had inside our listnodes.js. So this is the function that got pushed in our AWS console. We didn't have to do anything manually, but we have one error in our hand, and which is this HTTP did not get triggered. We will investigate that and we'll figure out what was the reason behind the API gateway not getting created. All right, so now it's time to verify what were the errors behind the fact that we could not able to create an API gateway for our Lambda function. As it appears that the first error that we made was it's not event that has to be declared, it's instead events. So I'll quickly fix that, and I'll quickly deploy our stack once again. And to deploy our stack, the command would yet remain SLS deploy. Now let's see what happens. It's checking for progress. we can quickly go and see in this that our stack creation has finished successfully, but it did not create our API Gateway resource. So the next thing that we are going to be checking is why it did not create our API Gateway resource. So let's see what we have declared. We have declared that our events would basically be a list. And if we go back to our events file, we can see it's again another list of HTTP blocks. How is it a list? Because we have appended this hyphen before our declaration. So what it signifies is that we can have multiple declaration of HTTP methods for our event or for our functions. Now, a function, because it already has the list declaration here, there is no need that we duplicate the list declaration here again, because we do not want to create multiple event files corresponding to the same list node. Rather, we can actually put together all different HTTP events into the same file, which is in our case the events.yaml. So after this fixes, let's quickly see if the stack deployment happens again and it creates our API gateway. We will quickly refresh our declaration and we can see that it's still running. It's still running. As you can see, the status is update in progress. It's still updating in progress. We'll wait for a few more seconds. Now it's update complete. And now we can see that the endpoint has been created.